asking Jonah why should he be angry when he did nothing to look after that plant. And then God seems to link this to the idea that he does everything he can to save his people, the Ninevites, as it were. So should he not do that? And it's difficult because, that obviously makes some sense. He's like, we do our best to look after stuff. But it also just makes Jonah just look like a bit of a punk. Today, in order to save you the job, I have read the entire book of Jonah from the Old Testament, the prophet guy with the fish thing. Again, that's not a particularly impressive feat because it's only 2 pages. Again, though, a remarkable amount of stuff in one story. If we look at our graphic again, just to work out where Jonah fits in this is quite an early part of this. There's no specific projections or anything or prophecies in terms of what's happening or anything like that, other than Jonah's job is to go to the city of Nineveh to warn them against things. So Jonah's just toddling along doing his thing, just being a normal person. Bang, God comes along, says, right, off to Nineveh with you to tell these people. Nineveh, we've found out since, is the capital city of Assyria. So basically the Assyrians are the ones who are going to kick the northern kingdom of Israel out in a few hundred years' time. There's some question marks over when this was written. It seems, if you look at biblical scholarship, overall, it seems it was written much later than it seems to have been suggested it's written. But then it doesn't seem to predict anything specific on Assyrian stuff. My feeling is that this is very much an allegorical story that conveys big T truth rather than literal truth. Partly because there are some bits in here that would seem to make it suggest that it's not even remotely trying to be claimed to be true. And in that respect, it reads more like something like Job, for example, or less poetic than Job. But the idea that it's conveying an idea without having to be literally true. And I'm quite relaxed on that. I think that the church seems sort of not divided or anything, but different schools of thought within the church over whether this is literal or whether it needs to be literal. So Jonah, anyway, is toddling along doing his thing. God comes along, right, off to Nineveh with you to tell these people that they're terrible. I'm going to whack them if they don't sort themselves out. Jonah, unlike most of the prophets we've met so far, goes, no, thank you very much, and legs it in the opposite direction, gets on a boat and heads off to sea. As you might have guessed, God doesn't approve of this response. So there's a massive storm while Jonah's on this boat with all the other crew. And I think one of the interesting indications that this is not a literally true story is that the crew then draw lots to figure out whose fault it is that this storm has suddenly come along, and they identify Jonah as the cause. Jonah, to be fair, admits this. So yes, it's me. God told me to do something and I didn't do it. So throw me overboard. And to be fair to the crew, they seem to try to avoid doing this. They don't want to kill him. But in the end, they just do it anyway, just because it's so the storm is seems like it's going to be pretty serious. So off Jonah goes and the storm ends. Interestingly, it notes from this that the crew of the boat convert to the God of Israel because of this, which I think is perhaps another indication of not literally true. I don't know. I mean, we've met lots of people so far who've seen things and acknowledge God and then just gone on to be complete punks afterwards. So, pinch of salt, but that probably doesn't matter. Anyway, so Jonah's in the water, and this is obviously not good, a long way from land. And it talks about a big fish comes along and swallows him. It does make the point that this is swallows, not eats. So it's not a great white shark, because they do chew a little bit, don't they? It does also say fish, not whale, which I'd sort of planned to tackle, but actually I don't really care. I mean, I don't know if ancient Hebrew had a distinction between a fish and a whale in terms of language. It's obviously a big thing that lives in water that swallows him. Unlikely to be true either way, obviously. If you go down into the belly of even a whale, I presume it's full of stomach acid and you can't breathe. So, I think unlikely this is the case, that this is literally true. And therefore it doesn't matter whether it's a fish or a whale. It says that whilst Jonah is in the belly of this fish, he's praying to God, basically saying sorry, which, makes some sense. The fish then, it says, vomits Jonah out onto dry land. Yummy. And then God gives him another chance, saying, I want you to go to Nineveh and tell people this stuff. And he's like, all right, yeah, okay, this time I'm going to do it. And then the hilarious point is he goes and tells them, they go, oh, all right, yeah, sorry, we'll sort ourselves out. And the city is saved. So that's new as well. Other than we know, if this is talk about 800 BC-ish, we know that Assyria are going to get whacked later on, because there's been lots of prophecies about Assyria going to have their getting whacked by Babylon later on. So the city is safe for now, but obviously that doesn't stick around or anything like that. Oddly, Jonah then seems annoyed that God's decided to let the Ninevites off, which is, well, it's a bit hypocritical, isn't it? I mean, he's just let him off. Now he's upset that he's not letting the Ninevites off. So it seems Jonah's in some sort of desert with not much shade and the sun's beating down, a bit like outside at the minute. And God sends some plant that shades him, and Jonah is very happy about this. But then the next day this plant dies, and then Jonah is back to being grumbly again. And then we get this bit from God asking Jonah why should he be angry when he did nothing to look after that plant. And then God seems to link this to the idea that he does everything he can to save his people, the Ninevites as it were, even if only temporarily in this instance. So should he not do that? And it's difficult because, I mean, that obviously makes some sense. He's like, we do our best to look after stuff, but it also just makes Jonah just look like a bit of a punk. You get forgiven, but you can't have other people. So yeah, not quite sure on that one, but that seems to be where we're going with it. It also notes that the population of Nineveh is 120,000, and God says that they cannot tell their right hand from their left. So it sounds like they're a bunch of muppets, or these simple people and fools we've heard about previously, or something like that. Don't know. I mean, it's a capital city. It seems a little bit odd. It's interesting, the Assyrians apparently are still around today. There's not having a particularly nice time of it, and they're broadly a Christian culture that was spread all over Iraq and Turkey and all that sort of area. So it's interesting that does seem to end up okay for them-ish in context of a Christian Bible. But yeah, good story, nice and short. Definitely, I don't think makes a great deal of sense if it's real, because it's just, there's too many questions raised by it. So again, a lot of the Old Testament stuff, I think if you take it allegorically, it's actually more profound. So I think that's what we'll do with this one. Again, carrying on this theme of releasing videos every day to get these all done before the 11th of June for the big live event. And on we will see what is next.